Hello, I'm King Axel, and today I'm going to be reviewing Napoleon, released by Ridley Scott and starring Joaquin Phoenix, released in 2023. Now, I watched the film Desiree 4 days before seeing Napoleon, and Desiree starred Marlon Brando as Napoleon, Merle Oberon as Josephine, and Gene Simmons, not the Kiss bass player, as Desiree. Oh, and Michael Rennie as Bernadette. Fair warning, I cannot stand Joaquin Phoenix. I hate him. Hate him. I freaking hate him. And I admire Brando's acting qualities above almost all others. That would set up for a really biased opinion. But I effectively shed the bias before watching this. I did not just try to, I succeeded. I assumed Brando's performance, while great, was most likely dated by now, as Desiree was released almost 7 years ago. I also went in with the assumption that the overall filmmaking should be astronomical in comparison. Desiree was a romance drama set with the backdrop of the Napoleonic Wars. I likened it akin to Gone with the Wind of sorts, and I assumed this film would be much more battle-heavy, political, and more detailed. I went into both of these films intentionally without knowing the true history of Napoleon's life and wars. Not because I'm adverse to learning about history, in fact, just the opposite. I love history. I really do. I love studying it. But because I wanted to judge the movie itself and let it tell me the story, I figured I'd do the research later. And I already have done that. What I did know going into this is Napoleon was a wartime leader of France, a bit of an egotist, and that might be an understatement. I heard he was like really full of himself. And attacked Russia and lost. I also know that there was a major battle at Waterloo, and I assume that this is the end of his wartime career, if not even killed in battle. As you can see, my historical knowledge heading into this is pretty minimal at best. So how did the film Napoleon actually fare? This is King Axel's Movie Lounge, True Thoughts Edition. For me, I hated this movie. I hated it. I really did. I'm not even sorry to say so. Ridley Scott follows history by accurately dating events across his 3-hour-long timeline. The battle scenes were graphic and awesome. The cinematography was phenomenal, and I think that's pretty much the standard nowadays. However, I did get the pleasure of seeing this in 4K Dolby Cinema. The costumes were amazing. Desiree's costumes were fantastic as well, but these looked truly authentic. The set designs were amazing. Visually, this is a damn good film. For me, the positives end abruptly there. It took no time at all to remind me why I hate watching Joaquin Phoenix as an actor in every movie, and it only grew worse as it went on. Scott followed the events, but there was also so much dramatization in this film, it was like watching Titanic or Gladiator, only not even a quarter of as good. What made Titanic work is Rose and Jack could have been just anybody. They really could have been anybody, so in a way it's like it could have been true, right? Even though it wasn't. With Gladiator, it kind of could have been true, even though it wasn't. With this one, it could not have really been true. You can't, I don't know, it's Napoleon. It's a specific figure in history, a very well-known guy. And he just, one word in particular that I try very hard not to use because it's become so overused in my social life and in my experience, the word cringe, but there were multiple instances during this movie I physically cringed. I actually writhed in my seat at least twice. Like, ugh. Just like that, at least twice. It's just bad. I haven't even seen a movie this bad in theaters since Moonfall. And this one might be the worst theater showing I've ever attended. I can't really speak too much more on it without giving anything specific away. So if you haven't seen it and you want my advice, hard pass. I give it 2 out of 10 stars. But my opinion is not the end all be all. Feel free to check out other reviews or go see it for yourself. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to deter you and say you shouldn't see it if you want to. If you want to go see it, go see it. Who knows? Maybe you might end up loving it. But if you are hearing my review and you're hearing other reviews and you're like, okay, we're all kind of saying the same thing. If that's what you're hearing, then don't go see it. Shame on me for thinking a Joaquin Phoenix movie might actually be good. And yes, I've seen Joker. Some people will disagree with me on that very hard. But that's their opinion. Mine is I didn't like Joker and I could not stand this movie. If you haven't seen the movie, I advise you stop watching here. If you have, here are my true thoughts, spoiler edition. First of all, I am not going to mince my words here, and I will most likely be using vulgar language. If that offends you, I suggest you tune out now. Now that that's out of the way, that was probably in the top five of worst films I've seen all year. I really expected a grand spectacle, and visually I got it, but story-wise, Joaquin Phoenix turned Napoleon into a pathetic little bitch. I said I'm not going to mince my words here, and I'm not. This is fucking atrocious. Half the time I was wondering if it was supposed to be funny, like Napoleon humming and stomping his feet when he wanted to fuck Josephine, or crawling underneath the table. Or how about when he found out Josephine had cheated on him, he stormed home and stood over her, demanding that she degrade herself. I'm nothing without you. And turns around to the next scene, and a complete 180, and has Josephine make the same demands to him, after she was the one who cheated, and after how angry he was. How about the scene where he yelled at the Austrian for their boats? You think you're great because you have boats. But I'm telling you, the whole audience erupted in laughter when he said this. Everybody laughed at him. And it wasn't meant to be funny. They laughed at him more than once. They laughed at him when he put the letters on his neck. I truly did shed all bias before watching this. I assumed Brando was dated and low budget in comparison to this movie in today's budget, but the very second I heard Joaquin speak, I was instantly reminded of how much I can't stand him. To make matters worse, I still gave him the benefit of the doubt, but Joaquin did virtually nothing to redeem himself, minus some of the battle scenes where he gave some commands. His exchange with Sarah Alexander also almost made me cringe. I could not help but compare him to Brando afterwards. Brando, who I doubted, likes around Phoenix, and I'm ashamed of myself for even thinking differently. Brando was intimidating, Phoenix was completely laughable and pathetic. The love letters he sent, the way he had sex with Josephine, and she had the absolute most disinterested and bored look that I've ever seen on a woman's face in my entire life. All of that and more just turned me off. Again, though, it was also largely Ridley Scott's fault. There was no mention of Desiree or Bernadette in the entire film, and that appalled me. In the movie Desiree, Napoleon was deeply in love with Desiree Clary, but instead married Josephine for political gain and wealth. Desiree married Bernadette, who eventually gave up his French citizenship to be the King of Sweden, later forming an alliance with Alexander I, allowing Russia to ambush them. That's pretty important. Solid of events. I don't think I worded that correctly. We're just going to move on. None of that was in Napoleon. And so now I had to do further research to fact check what the hell really happened. And I'm not opposed to doing that. In fact, I enjoy it sometimes. But I have a suspicion that the 1954 film was a lot truer to the events that happened in that regard than the 2023 film. Now, another thing is, and this has been revealed to me throughout other reviewers that I've watched since I wrote this. So I wrote mine, and I've done research since. And one thing that is important is how choppy it is. Everything is so quick. And I'm glad that others were able to point that out to me. And I really don't want to bring anybody else's thoughts into my review, but it's true. In this case, I'm going to do that because it's so true. These battle scenes were so short. While they were great sometimes, they were so short. And we jump years. What happened in Egypt? We didn't see a single battle scene in Egypt. He shot the cannon at the pyramid, which, by the way, did not happen. In history, that didn't happen at all. So, we saw no Egyptian battle. Nothing about Italy. Absolutely nothing. It's like one scene, 3 years later, another scene for 3 minutes, years later, another scene. I didn't know anything more about Napoleon's life in this movie, really, that I did not get from Desiree. Now, Desiree's fault was there were no battle scenes at all. It wasn't that type of movie, though. This one was kind of supposed to be. But he was such a child. He was so immature. He was a big baby. It was disgusting. What I did like was the fact that this movie at least focused on Napoleon more. I actually, you know what? I did learn some things about this movie. I didn't know about his exile. Maybe I missed that in Desiree. Then again, that movie showed the romance side of things. It didn't show a single battle. It didn't show an exile. In Napoleon, we got to see him fire the cannons. We got to see graphic bloodshed. The cannonball by the horse was fucking brutal. And I loved it. Seeing the French stop in a perfect line, allowing their cannons to fire on the ice shelf, freezing and drowning the Austrians was awesome. I loved that. I really did. Those parts were like, my eyes were fixated on the screen. I was like, this is sick. The costumes were great too. I love the red uniform that both Brando and Phoenix wore. And although I think Brando looked better in it, Phoenix actually looked damn good to me too. And her darker red, in a way, was more appealing. I also really love the Emperor and Empress attire. In fact, that actually kind of knocks Desiree down a peg because I don't recall seeing Brando in any empirical dressing. I don't know if that's the right word. Emperor dressing. But again, there's not much more to the movie than that. I really hated enduring this film, but I stuck through it. I won't write a review unless I finish the entire thing. But one of the few moments in my life I actually considered leaving the theater early. I did not like this film. 2 out of 10 stars. Maybe you disagree with me. If you disagree with me and you thought it was okay, or if you actually admired it and loved it and you loved what Ridley Scott did to the story, comment below. Tell me your thoughts on the matter. If you agree with me, tell me if there's a point that I missed that made you hate the movie too. Comment below. If you like this, please give it a like. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit the notifications bell so you get all of my fresh content. You get early access and exclusive content on Patreon. So go ahead and please check that out. Anyways, it's a day late, but happy Thanksgiving and thank you for checking out my channel. Peace.